50% of the population in a democracy, and it took, 46 administrations before we had a female in the executive branch. Just the degree to which women have suffered injustice in this country and in this world is actually indescribable. Indescribable. The fact that the breakthrough happens in the year 2021 is really embarrassing for all of us in its lineage during the primaries. That notwithstanding, having the first Asian in the executive branch is also a great moment for America, because we're supposed to be a melting pot. It doesn't get any more melting pot than Kamala Harris. So it's a great day for not Asian Americans, African Americans, and women, but it's a great day for America, because this is what America was supposed to be.
I don't know if we're going to J-Lo, but that's my president right there. But anyway, yeah, and to your point, like, there are some people who probably agree with us quite a bit on policy, that it's become sort of like a totem to be opposed to really recognizing or being affected by increased representation and all of that. But that's not me. I think we can obviously have very high expectations for policy and positions and advocacy, and we can also notice when history is being made and recognize that as a good thing. It's not the only thing, but it's a significant thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I completely agree with that, John. And, as, obviously someone who's Black, this is huge, right? I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and, so seeing the leaps that America has made from an optics standpoint, with Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, it's a big thing. And I'm a policy person. I was not a Kamala, supporter. I wasn't a Joe Biden supporter. I was very much a Warren and Bernie supporter, and neither of them looked like me. But that was all policy. But the fact that you do have someone who looks like me up there right now, with her nieces, Mina Harris and everyone, it's special, and it's going to change a generation, frankly.
Yeah, guys, it's about the idea of America, and that's what the whole Trump 4 years was about, and what the last violent battle was about. Who are we? Are we just a nation of white people who oppress non-white people, or are we really the thing that says that it says in the document, equality and justice for all? And so that's what Kamala Harris represents, at a minimum as a symbol, if not also personally and in her policies. So, all right, let's dip into J-Lo for a second, because she's from the block and I'm from the block. So let's just listen for a second. Entertained and indifferent at the same time. That was good. I like it. It was a good interpretation of the song for what we heard. Lady Gaga had a great interpretation of the song, right? But who cares? Anyway, back to Klobuchar.
The sun is shining, and Mr. President-elect, this is the first inauguration in the history of America where J-Lo was the warm-up act for Chief Justice Roberts. With that, it is now my distinct honor to introduce the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, John Roberts, to administer the presidential oath. The next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
A lot of QAnon heads are about to explode. Come up with excuses.
The cloud is literally parting as we speak. And this is, I'm surprised at how great I feel at this very, very moment. It's like,
That's just a reflection of Trump. I mean, Trump was, laughably horrible. I feel great right now too, and I can't stand Joe Biden. So that's just, yeah.
All right, let's listen in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. do solemnly swear
That I will faithfully execute.
that I will faithfully execute
The office of President of the United States.
the office of President of the United States
And will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Woohoo! The shit show is over!
One more and final time. Down goes Trump. So no longer president, no longer an albatross around our neck. Fascism has been defeated in America, at least for now. I hope not the ring in that fight, and we'll see. But a very standard, normal politician is back.
Assuming that that's actually Joe Biden. I only say that to the millions of Americans who are sure that that is not.
Guys, I gotta tell you, I'm shocked at how great I feel. Like, I knew I'd feel good on this day, and I felt great when he lost. I felt great when it was triple confirmed and quadruple confirmed. I felt great when the insurrection and the violence was put down. But this very minute, when Trump has no power at all, none. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. You loser of losers. You fascist of fascists. We're back to America. It's awesome. It's awesome. So does that mean we're not going to fight with Biden? Hell no. Let's get it on right now. but at least this is the fight we've been engaged in, and this is a fight we can win. If we had devolved into violence and fascism, that is not a fight you could win with politics. And so it's just great that it was put down and America's back.
Jake, I want to ask you a question based on your experience, because obviously you started the show a billion years ago under George W. Bush, and we're very critical of George W. Bush for a lot of very obvious reasons, and then we got Obama. And then you had this novel idea to apply the same sort of critical lens to a president of your party, and you experienced a lot of strike back for that. So for those of us now launching back into a Democratic administration, and I know a lot of the media is probably ready to just, oh God, it's done, now we don't have to worry, but that's not realistic. So what can we expect as we inevitably are going to be disappointed with a number of the things Biden does and doesn't do, and we feel the need to continue to be critical of him as we were of Trump? How are you feeling about the next few years when all of the Democrats turn against you and TYT again?
Can't wait. I was born for the... You merely adopted it. Born in it. So, all right, listen, guys. I can't wait to answer that question because it's such an important one. We do have to take a break soon. Ida Rodriguez is up next, but Biden's going to give the speech now. We can't take the break. So, all right, well, obviously we've got to cover the Biden speech for you guys. So let's go to that now.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, Democracy is fragile. As power, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilient of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime of service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far. But we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country has taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself.
That was the implicit way of saying screw you.
Any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
Good line. Really good line.
To fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make healthcare secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days.
Yes.
I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggles, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America. We've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh. All of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again. Hear one another. See one another. Show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the Great Hall, where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand, where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever.
I love the non-suffragette movement. And remember, women got the right to vote only 100 years ago. It's unbelievable.
I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who measure me and my heart, if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, or rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand, there are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. This is what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again. not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And will lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them for becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. Back under democracy and on truth, a raging force, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. The fact is, we face them all at once, presenting the nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch, but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time. Sustained by faith, driven by conviction, devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
All right, there you have it. So, guys, I too would like to quote my favorite song. It's tricky to rock around on time. Okay, anyways, I cannot wait to analyze that speech. There were some great parts, there were some disappointing parts, there were some exciting parts and some boring parts. We're going to get to all of that, but we must take the break. Ida Rodriguez is going to join us next. Frederick Joseph, you're awesome. Thank you for joining us in this historic moment. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, everybody. Have a good day. I think my name was Dragon Local or something like that last time I was on. So
Nice.
Dragon Local out.
All right, wonderful, Frederick. Thank you. We'll be right back, guys.
I started investing when I was quite young, about 10 years old.
I have not started investing yet.
Indeed, yes, I have invested.
It's something that I'm brand new to. I find it difficult because I don't have the knowledge, you know. I think an app would help if I had more education, knowledge, and information.
I invest to set up for my future.
If there's any app that would make my life much easier, please send it my way.
To make my life easier, at least. That would be amazing.
The turf war starts right now. You will form 4 teams based solely on what region of the country you call home.
The West is crushing it.
I have you as mentally strong as possible.
We got to represent for the South.
Let your artwork speak for itself to show who you are.
We are the Midwest, and as far as I'm concerned,
Nobody's paying attention to the East right now. We're going to come out of nowhere.
I'd rather be underestimated.
Ink Master Turf War. New episodes Tuesdays at 10 and catch up on demand.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 1-800-630-6785. That's 1-800-630-6785. Again, 1-800-630-6785.
What's up, everybody? My name is Andy Casagrande. I'm a 2-time Emmy Award-winning wildlife cinematographer and filmmaker. I specialize in sharks, and I wanted to let you know one of my latest shark films, Diving with Sharks, The Ultimate Guide, is now available on Voyager Documentary on Pluto TV. Check it out. You'll love the visuals and the message of how we can coexist, protect, and respect this incredible species around the world. Thank you.
Here's an important message from the Diabetes Solution Center. Diabetics understand all too well the
Start in 6 months.
And I've got a budget to help you get moved into your own place.
And I'll put together a nice custom.
For CGM, you can immediately reduce your pain. It's easy to use and helps you make more accurate diabetes treatment decisions. If you are testing your blood sugar 4 or more times daily, injecting insulin 3 or more times daily, or using an insulin pump, call the Diabetes Solution Center right now to learn about this groundbreaking new CGM technology. And if you have Medicare, you can get a new CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Shipping is free, and we'll even bill your insurance company for you. If you are testing your blood sugar 4 or more times daily, injecting insulin 3 or more times daily, or using an insulin pump, call the Diabetes Solution Center right now to learn how you can get your own continuous glucose monitor or CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Attention parents of children with cerebral palsy. If you suspect a medical mistake may have occurred at or near the time of birth, call Science Kirk for a free legal consultation. Financial compensation may be available for children diagnosed with cerebral palsy, Erb's palsy, or another birth injury. A lifetime of medical care can cost millions of dollars. Protect your child and find out what legal rights may be available.
Call 800-582-5804.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
I've never seen the lizard like this before. All right, back on the Young Turks. Jake Huger, John Iderl, Andre Rodriguez, everybody.
I love when you're revved up, though. It makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah. Well, you picked the right day. So Ida and I were talking earlier this morning on her Sirius show. So what is... Are you on there for a week, Ida? What are you doing on there? Let folks...
I'm just doing a 2-week special on there. You and I talked about it before I did it. So I'm just there for 2 weeks, and we shall see.
So can you let folks know when and what channel they can tune in?
Yes, it's channel 126 Urban View. I'm on from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 to 9 a.m. on here on the time. And it's channel 126 again. And I do there what I do here, promote progressive ideas and voices and people everywhere I go.
Yep. No, I love doing it with you this morning. So it was great. And I'm intimately familiar that it starts at 7 a.m. West Coast time. All right, let's do it, guys. So we had the most important part of the inauguration happen already, the swearing in. Trump's no longer president. Biden's president, which I continue to be shocked by every time. Biden just gave his speech. We have to analyze that in a second. We're going to dip in and out of the rest of it, which is honestly not quite as important, to say the least. And so, because I've got to give you an analysis of that Biden speech. But here, let's just listen in for a second, because I'm curious what's happening here.
Amanda.
Oh, it's the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly possibly prevail over catastrophe. Now we assert. How could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our action and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our lenders become their
So look, she's a wonderful young lady, and poems are nice. There was a nice line about, along the lines of catastrophe will not overtake us. We will beat catastrophe. Boy, did I butcher that line you just heard. That was delivered much better by her. But again, songs, poems, I'm not that interested. So no disrespect to her. She seems wonderful and brilliant. I mean, look, and people, now I'm just going to make a mean comment about poems, but knowing that, yes, I wrote one called Hope. Anyway, people got to stop saying it in the same staccato way of delivering poems. We got to come up with something new. So this whole of sand goes well with cream cheese on a bagel. You got to stop doing reading poems that way.
I don't think she was really doing that.
Yeah, a little bit. She was way better than most, right? But still, there was a little same kind of rhythm, a tiny bit. Anyways, before we get even more into the analysis of Biden there, so look, she's trying to do the same thing that this entire day is trying to do, which is unity, 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 and it's just not the real world. I mean, I know that's partly why they elect him, but and here's Roy Blunt again, and he's co-chair of the Inauguration Committee. So it's very, very normal. This is exactly what happens in all inaugurations. This is not Joe Biden trying to reach out and be more bipartisan. It's just the reality of how these things work. But we're going to dip in and out of these speeches, but I keep promising you the analysis, and we got to deliver for you in a minute. But let's just hear this person out for a minute. I'm trying to give you a flavor of it without getting you engulfed in songs and poems and prayers. So let's
listen. As a nation and people of faith gathered in this historical moment, let us unite in prayer. God, we gather under the beauty of your holiness and the holiness of your beauty. We seek your face, your smile, your warm embrace. We petition you once more in this celebration. We pray for divine favor upon our President, Joseph R. Biden, and our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and their family. We further ask that you would extend the same favor upon our Vice President, Kamala D. Harris, and our second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and their family. More than ever.
Yeah, I'm not much for everybody bowing their heads, and I don't want to get any further into talk of prayers. Okay,
let's staccato for me.
Yeah, it's the same thing over. To God's going to protect us. Well, sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. Anyway, okay. So let's do it. Let's do analysis of the Biden speech. So Joe Biden just spoke, and there were some great parts of the speech and some, mediocre and troubling parts of the speech, in my opinion. Curious to get your guys' take on it. First of all, of course, most interesting thing to note is that his middle name is Robinette. So we just discovered that. Okay, perhaps we might have discovered it earlier, but it is fun to note. Robinette. So Corn Pop and Robinette battling is a fun battle from the old days. Anyways, now on to the good stuff. Look, guys, we're back in the Paris Accords. Is it enough? Not really, right? But is it a good thing? Yes! Yes, we have rejoined the world. It's a great thing. We are going to do more to try to battle climate change. That's a great thing. So when I see that, when I see a president acknowledging white supremacy, it's just a relief. You know, we've been lied to and gaslit for so long. And so to have a president, is there white supremacy still in this country? Of course, right? Is at least a moment of like, we're back to planet Earth and back to the realities of the actual America. And it doesn't mean that you should give up on America. It just means we fight harder and we work harder to get to a better place. So the fact that we're doing that is wonderful. And when he said joy, he quoted scripture and said, joy cometh in the morning. Well, that I could definitely relate to, because this morning Donald Trump is no longer president. Joy has cometh. Okay, so no question about that. But you know, when he talks about unity, you know my feelings about that. It's not realistic. I like that he's saying it, and I know that people elected him to be a healer of the country. That's what he ran on, and a unifier. But let's be honest, they mainly elected him because he wasn't Donald J. Trump. And so, and I don't know that that's a nod to unity so much. I know he ran on unity, but he might have gotten elected on the opposite, on the fact that you are not him. That's not really unifying. And so, to me, unity honestly doesn't make much sense, just logically. And if you're a person who grew up on New York Times, NPR, and CNN, you're rebelling at that thought. You hate this. You're almost turning out now. I was told, brainwashing to believing that unity for unity's sake is awesome, always wonderful. But I gotta ask this simple, logical question: who are we unifying with, and to what end? So if you say, let's unify with racists, well, we kind of did when we reunified after the Civil War. We're kind of doing it now. Okay, it's a tough pill to swallow, but okay. But what are we unifying towards? If you say, well, we're reunifying with racists, but so that we can get to this wonderful goal of more tax cuts for the rich? No. I don't agree, and I will not unify over absurdities. I will not unify over things I do not agree with, right? But if you say we're unifying so that we can actually get to equality and justice for all, and I'm going to prove that in my policies, then great, I love it, and I can't wait for it, brother. So we welcome joy in the morning with open arms, and we look forward to the wonderful things that Joe Biden can do, but not blindly. Hope is here. It is not blind. So we will hold Joe Biden accountable, including this very first speech of his. And he said, we are going to end this uncivil war. And it's a nice note, and I'm glad he said it, but it's not really true. Our job is to tell you what's true. This uncivil war is not remotely over. Donald Trump leaves as the least popular president in American history, but he also leaves as the most popular among Republican voters. More popular than Reagan, more popular than Eisenhower. So our division continues. He made a great nod to truth and that truth matters. And he had a really good line about how we have to get beyond the lies for power and profit. But the reality is the establishment also has lies for power and profit. The lie that we can't afford healthcare for everyone, like every other developed nation in the world, that we cannot afford it in the middle of a pandemic. It is not true. It is a lie that honestly helped Joe Biden get elected. It was a lie given to us by the mainstream media, including the CNNs of the world. So while we ban the lies of the right wing and Donald Trump, let us not be seduced by the lies of the establishment that are for their profit and power. All right. I have more, but let me kick it over to John and Ida. So, John, your thoughts on the speech?
Look, I would generally say I mostly agree. I think that this is the sort of event, and he's the sort of candidate that you're going to get a lot of this unity talk. And I think it's not objectively bad in all senses. If we believe that Donald Trump being president helped to drive people apart and increase extremism and those sorts of things, then I probably believe that the opposite of that in terms of the way you communicate could potentially help to simmer things down just a little bit. Maybe. I would have preferred if there had been a bit more, not just about the challenges of which there was a little bit. He mentioned inequity, he mentioned the pandemic, but more specific plans, sort of, we're unifying and here's where we're going to, rather than just we're unifying and here's a unity place we're going to. Like, I would have preferred that, but I think it is what the event is about. We've just been through, the attack on the Capitol. If it represents that he seriously believes that, he's going to be able to work with the Republicans a ton, really substantively, that they're going to be battling him, then that's disappointing. But I hope that it's just him doing his duty, which is to unify us. But I just really hope that the sort of Obama first term period that Obama went through, of really trying to reach out constantly, I hope that Biden's version of that is far shorter, because we don't have time to waste.
Yeah, look, more good lines. He said, this is this winter of our peril. And it really, really was. So give him credit for that. And he said, at least democracy did not die on our watch. And that is a thing to be celebrated. And as I saw Kamala Harris leaving there as we were doing the analysis of the speeches, I thought she's leaving as Vice President of the United States of America. And so democracy did not die on our watch. It's not just Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party that should be proud of that. It's all of us. It's the voters. It's the audience. It's the people that fought. It's the people that won. Democracy lives, and it is a great, great day in America. So let's not lose track of that. Ida, your thoughts?
Okay, so first and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to Amanda Gorman, the young Black poet who's 22 years old, because she did make history. And I know that we are so in division right now and in turmoil that, all of this stuff feels very secondary, because just a few weeks ago, we saw some of the most egregious acts against our democracy from our very own citizens in this country. I do want to say that I agree with you, Cenk, and unity is not possible if your beliefs are rooted in my oppression. And that is not going to go away in a couple of days, because we hear some great words and prayers and people kumbayaing right now because there's a Black woman in office, when there are so many Black people and brown people who are dying right now from this pandemic. That doesn't go away on Inauguration Day. I think we hit 400,000. There are healthcare providers who don't have what they need so that they can provide the services for these people. Our healthcare system is broken. And I just want to remind you of these things, because we get into these days and we have these celebrations and we have these hashtags and we celebrate all of this stuff. And there's so many Americans who are struggling right now. And just say that, this racial stuff, which was horrible that we've been seeing, but it's always been here. And now the highlighter that's been scribbled over it to say how deep it is rooted into the American way. I want to know that now that we've highlighted it, what are we going to actually do about it? Because we know that white supremacist groups have infiltrated law enforcement and our military and have been moved because they have been a threat to this actual president and this new vice president. So no, we can't sit here and have this singing and this celebration. What we should be doing is paying tribute to those soldiers that are, many of them are Black and brown, who put their lives on the line for the safety of these people who forget them when it comes to policies and strategies later. Puerto Rican soldiers who don't get to vote for the president, occupying the White House to fight to save, to protect his life. And I think that we need to remember that when we have this, yes, we can celebrate democracy and we can celebrate freedom, but it's not real freedom if it's not true freedom for all Americans.
Yeah, 100% right. And so, look, sometimes talk of unity is an argument centered around privilege as well. Because, again, it depends on what we're unifying around. And so my background is Muslim, and this country is not unified around love for Muslims. It just hasn't, okay? And so if you say to me, we're going to, then I love it. It's wonderful. And not because Muslims are any different or better than anyone, but precisely to the opposite, which is that we're just the same as everybody else. We're all 100% American. And if we get treated that way, then that's fantastic. That's the true creed of America. And that's why my family moved here. And that's why we love this country, because that's what we're aspiring to, right? But, you know, let alone if you're Black, Latino, and on, the Chinese were the only country, China, and ethnicity that were ever banned completely from America for some period of time. So if you're unifying around any people, whether they're Chinese or Muslim, which pretty much this covers my whole family, then I say no. I have no interest in that unity for unity's sake. So, but if you're unifying around, you know, what it means to have true equality and justice, obviously that's what we're literally here for. That's what the point of the Young Turks is, and to hold people accountable to that. Biden said there, my whole soul is this, when he was talking about unity. And it's a nice line, but it's also what I'm worried about. If you're invested in unity for unity's sake, you will make compromises on policy just to get to unity. And that is something to really, really look out for if we're doing an honest analysis of what's to come the next 4 years. I want to give some of the last word on the analysis here to you guys. Give you guys a couple of quotes from YouTube Super Chat here. And we appreciate all of you guys being part of this coverage and all of our coverage. If you hit the join button below the video while you're watching on YouTube, you become a Turk member, one of us, and help us put these shows together and fight change for you all, okay? And we want a part of that fight today, and obviously we've got a lot more to come on that front soon. And for folks watching anywhere else, obviously tyt.com/join. But Thomasina wrote in to really amplify the point that Ida was making. Down goes Trump. Loving this podcast so much. Love 2020. So much love, she wrote in. 2020 was hard on me. My daughter was murdered. I buried her on March 1st, and 2 aunties and 2 brothers, all back to back, but I'm crying for happiness. So it has been a brutal year, 2020. So that family obviously went through incredible tragedy, but a lot of our families did. 400,000 people are dead from COVID. So now I'm hearing more and more people in my personal life who are saying, oh my God, my friend's dad died. Yeah. It's real. Guys, it's been real from day one. That's why this propaganda is so maddening. It gets you to question reality. Well, I mean, we're having a debate about whether 2 + 2 = 4, and then it turns out 4 happened to my dad. No, 4 has always been real. 2 + 2 has always equaled 4. So 400,000 Americans, that's 0.1% of the country. That's not a good thing. That is a giant, massive number, a massive number of dead people. It really is the winter of our peril. And so thank God we're done with 2020. Thank God, at least at a bare minimum, the thing you can give the establishment is you might not agree with all their goals. And then when you don't, their competence is problematic, right? But they are competent on the things that you agree with and the things you don't agree with. And so Joe Biden is very, very likely to bring competence back into the United States government. That means you're likely to get the vaccine sooner. That means we're likely to save a lot more lives. We at least have a president who cares. Trump didn't do anything about COVID after the election. As we were breaking record after record, 9/11 level casualties day after day after day. Trump almost never talked about it, did nothing about it. All he did was, it was a fraud, stolen election. Just the most vile, despicable person who's ever been in public office. The fact that he's gone today, I'm never going to get over what a wonderful day it is on that alone. But last word is Martin Jorgensen. He says, it's done, OMG. Maybe I can sleep peacefully again. It's been a horrific 4 years. Please, America, don't scare us all like that again. Thank you, TYT, for your strong, honest work. congrats from Denmark. So there's something wonderful today in Denmark because there's something wonderful for the whole world to celebrate today. Other than the loathsome, hateful right wing across the world who are united in their bigotry and hatred and fear of immigrants and everyone else that doesn't look like them, the rest of the world is celebrating because one of the most horrific leaders of our times has been defeated, humiliated, and driven from office. So on that alone, it's a great day in America and in the whole world.
John, if we have time, I wanted to ask Ida a question, actually, and sort of to her point about unity. Like we obviously, like we're enjoying this and we're glad it's happening, everything. But we also know that the same problems we had yesterday are still here. We just don't have Trump anymore, and we need to deal with these. Like the people. Like Trump's people they're going to be sad for a little bit, and then they're going to come back fighting. The Republicans are going to still be there. Like, what do you think about like all the people that we need to stay engaged in this? People who don't necessarily follow things as much as us or the audience, that don't necessarily agree with us on everything, but that were active for the past few years of Donald Trump and how like clearly awful he was. Like, do you worry that now with Biden in, people are going to go back to bed and people are going to go back to brunch, and once we get past the pandemic, like we're going to suddenly find ourselves with a lot of our allies having drifted away because Trump's not here anymore?
Absolutely. I mean, you know how many people have created careers just on hating Donald Trump, and for profit, not because they actually care about the people. It just became something very popular where people were really every single day talking about Trump gaining a following because it's gone mainstream. I think that the way we showed up to vote for Obama because we wanted to see history in the making with a black president, and we showed up to get rid of Donald Trump because we realized how divisive and what a tool he was for white supremacy and actually for just barbaric behavior and foolishness and an attack on our education system. I think it's important that we stay engaged, because we do a lot of complaining. You, me, and Cenk, and all of us are constantly getting tweets from people who have a lot of political opinions. They have a lot of things to say, but they don't show up to the voting polls, and they don't think about this on a regional and local level. Donald Trump and the president is just the presidency is just one aspect of our problems, but we have to think locally and we have to stay engaged locally, because we have to get rid of these sheriffs, these judges, these superintendents, all of the people who have something to do with the real estate and the lack of access for us. You know, I think about this day and I think about the First Nations people, the Native Americans, and what they have to feel, because we have built such a patriotic all these rituals based on their raping and pillaging and all of the horrible stuff that has happened to the First Nations people of this land, who are the natural inhabitants of this land. And I really hope that we continue to show up for one another, not just on Twitter, but with our dollars and with our votes, because it's going to take all hands on deck for us to make a change in this country. All we've seen in the last 4 years are the highlights of all of the problems that have been bubbling for a long time that we have not been addressing. And so, yes, I worry that now that Donald Trump, ding dong, the witch is gone, a lot of people are just going to go back to their, day thinking that this is resolved. And as Cenk said, in 2016, this has only just begun. I talked to Jamal Bowman today. We only have a few people who are really vested in the interest of all the people. And then we got to deal with all these corporations running our country. So yes, we have to stay engaged, and we have to make sure that we're getting information from the proper source, because what we saw the other day on January 6th was a great indicator of how failed our education system is in this country, and we got deep, deep problems.
Yeah. So, look, now we begin the transition to what our ass of the Democratic Party and Joe Biden is. And so first we start with the $2,000 checks. Promises were made, and turning around immediately and saying, just kidding, is not going to work. Not going to work. Not remotely. It would be starting off on a disastrous footing. So that's number one. Number two, we have a number of things that were promised that are easy, and Biden will do those, getting back into the Paris Accord, et cetera. He is promised to do a little more, getting out of the Keystone Pipeline deal. I am surprised by that, and pleasantly so, and I'm here for it. Okay, so great. Oftentimes we criticize the Democratic Party, and because people are used to how partisan news is, so when they tune in, not just to MSNBC, but to CNN, they will get usually 24 hours of cheerleading for corporate Democrats. So the idea of holding Democrats accountable on things that are important is an anathema to the mainstream media. That's why they talk about nonsense like tan suits and Peloton bikes, because it allows them to do fall criticism of the Democratic Party while actually not touching them on the substance at all. We don't do that. We will, as you saw, we ripped Donald Trump's face off. I don't know any show that despised him more than we did. Okay, that doesn't mean Democrats get a blank check. Hell no. And if you can't stomach us criticizing Democrats on your behalf to get you what you deserve, then this is not the show or the network for you, right? MSNBC's got nonstop pom-poms. If you want pom-poms for Democrats, you'll get 4 years of pom-poms from MSNBC. The idea that MSNBC hosts would criticize Joe Biden or Kamala Harris is unthinkable. If they do, it'll be about trivial matters, not about the substance. I guarantee you. So we will hold the powerful accountable, whether they are Republicans or Democrats, because that's kind of what we were supposed to do in news, and it appears that almost everyone else in news has forgotten that. Now, there's some other great folks in news in the Intercept, Guardian, Democracy Now!, and then great progressive hosts, Kokoliski, Sam Cedar, Rational National, A Humanist Report, Ida Rodriguez, Ben Dixon, Frederick Joseph, I can go on and on, obviously, right? So we're going to do our jobs. And along those lines, in terms of once you get past the easy, the Paris Accord of the world, well, then we get into stuff that should be easy but will not be, like $15 minimum wage. Should pass on day one, should have no issues whatsoever. It is intensely popular throughout the country, including in the reddest of states. The only reason it wouldn't pass on day one is because of one word: corruption. Yep. Corruption within the Republican Party and corruption within the Democratic Party. No one in their right mind would not be in favor of a proposal that is massively popular, and one that you promised. But the Democrats will try to evade. That's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. If they pass it, I love giving credit where it is due, and I'll do it with bells on, and we'll light the fireworks. Okay, but if they try to prevaricate and evade, we'll come for them, and we'll let you know, and we will point out every one of their lies, and we will be 100% unabashed. We don't have access. We don't care about access. They can take their access and shove it. We're going to tell the people the truth. And I pick $15 minimum wage because it is so easy. Yeah. When you get to H.R. 1, the anti-corruption measure, that's the one the Democrats ran on and claimed to be so proud of. There is no way they are going to do it. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. That's another thing that they can pass on day one. And there's a lot of great provisions in H.R. 1. I don't say that lightly. That's the issue I care most about because it affects all other issues. And I would tell you if it was weak sauce. And there are portions of it that are not great. But there are stuff in there that is fantastic. If they pass it in its entirety, I would be thrilled. They will not, I guarantee it. They will water it down beyond recognition. There's no way in the world the corporate Democrats pass H.R. 1 through the Senate and have Biden sign it in its entirety. So the battle will be engaged, and there will be no ands, ifs, or buts about that fight. And when you talk of unity, hey, why don't you just pass non-corruption measures while pretending that you got rid of corruption? No deal. Let alone Medicare for all. Biden was super clear he's against it. Are we done with it? Hell no. I don't care that he's against it. I'm for it. So let's fight.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say, because people do attack me and say, well, you're so anti-democratic. Like, who are you with? I just want to make it very clear of who I'm with. I'm with the people. Until there is justice, equality, equity, and freedom for all of the people, my people included, then I'm with the people. All this celebrity worship of these political parties have gotten us here. From the president of SAG, Ronald Reagan, to the guy from, the Apprentice, we have been ushering in this Hollywood mentality and this celebrity worship. These are public servants and officials, and we need to be holding them accountable. We pay their salaries.
100%. Preach it, teach it, Ida Rodriguez. So, look, we're out of time in this hour, but everybody check out New Serum. Everybody check out Ida Rodriguez on Sirius Satellite Radio over the next couple of weeks. Channel 126, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern, okay? And I tell you to check out Damage Report, but Damage Report's next, so you just have to stay here. That was super easy. So John and I are going to come back and we're going to do the news of the day on top of the obvious, which is inauguration, which we're covering all day. So don't miss a second of that as well. Again, guys, if you hit the join button below on YouTube, all the folks on Twitch, I see all your comments. I've read all your comments. I appreciate you, love you for it. But wherever you are, tyt.com/join, come be a Young Turk. Be a champion for truth, be a champion for progressives, and fight so that we can actually pass the bills that will affect your lives. We're here not just on blind hope, but on real hope to fight for real change. So come fight with us to bring that change. Today is a massive, important day for that change, but the job is only half done. Now we've got to actually pass the bills that affect your lives so we can get to a better America. All right. Ida and John, thank you for being part of this coverage, obviously, as we did the play-by-play here. But up next is Damage Report. John and I will be right back and give you all of that, including amazing news from today. All right, we'll be back.
At BetMGM, online casino is in good hands with exclusive premium Blackjack Pro. The best slots with huge jackpots, plus a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 and $25 free. BetMGM Casino.
2020's done. A new era has begun. So keep pushing forward because this is 2021. Make a different future. Start different at GoDaddy.com.
A clean sheet, a fresh start, a new battle. You will watch it, feel it, read it. Love it like the first time.
In the 21st century, a shopper will exist like no other. The Sweepinator. They will be powerful, versatile, and run wild in the up.
Jack, no. You began
without me.
You began without me.
But God as my witness, I will be the one to finish it.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 100, 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
I'm back at gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I experienced that look earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
That it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Bye-bye. Corn Pop wasn't bad, dude. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inauguration Day. We're done. Trump's gone. That's in the past. We're looking forward, not back, but only in the hopeful way. Hopefully not in the prosecutorial way. But anyway, I'm John Aderola, very excited to walk you through an hour of not only a little bit of talk about the inauguration, and we're certainly going to be talking about both Trump's leaving, Biden's coming in, but also some other news of the day. And when I say we, I mean me. And despite the fact that it's Wednesday, it is Inauguration Day, so we decided we're going to give you something special. We're going to give you Cenk Uygur. How's it going, Cenk?
Good, brother. How you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good. I wish it could be a cleaner good. And I know we're already being criticized for being as, occasionally negative in our coverage, but that's just, we don't put aside everything just because the good things happening. That's not who we are. So people can't really be too surprised that we feel happy, we feel relieved, we have an opportunity, an opening is now available to us to apply pressure and get some good stuff, but there's a lot of work that's coming, and I'm not ready to take 6 weeks off or anything.
Yeah, look, it's nonsense. I love you, but that's not news. So it's saying, oh, you should stop criticizing things that you know to be true. You should stop saying things that are true for any period of time. A day, 6 weeks. No, that's not how news works. I remember when I was at MSNBC, and Barack Obama had just given a speech about the Egyptian revolution, and they told me not to comment on it honestly afterwards, and that we had to wait a certain period of time. And I remember literally having a conversation with, how long? Do you wait a minute, an hour, a day, a week before you can tell the truth about the speech? I mean, what an absurdity. No one's going to care about that speech a week from now. So no, the time to be honest is always.
Yeah,
So that's
totally.
kind of how news is supposed to work.
And we're going to try to make this hour work. Thank you to everyone who's joining us, regardless of what platform you're on. Some of you have already been watching for a few hours, but please like this stream and share it so that people know we're active as we go through these many stories. I did want to let you know something special, though, before we launch into this first story. And we're going to have a little bit of fun to start things off. This is not necessarily going to be, although there are some important substantive things coming, this is not going to be just hardcore on, all that. Like, we're going to have a little bit of fun, but we have an announcement. And it's an announcement that we've sort of made before, but it's official now, okay? As of right now, if you bring up your little phone and you load up your little TikTok, you'll find the damage report on there. No big deal. You'll find me. You might find Jank from this show on there soon. I'm seeing a break in the news, but are we still live? Can we confirm if we're still live? Okay, good. Well, and now still on TikTok following that break, so definitely take a look at that. We've been having a little bit of fun. There's already some videos up. If you haven't already, it's a lot of fun. If you don't use TikTok, well, I didn't before either, but I'm learning it. If I can learn it, I think you can too. So search at The Damage Report on there, and you can give us ideas of what sort of content to see from The Damage Report on TikTok starting now.
Yeah, so I'd like to say for my part, welcome TikTok. It's good to have you here. And obviously my middle name is Tak. Although in Turkish there's some chance it could be. Abi TikTok gelsene buraya. Anyways, will I be doing dancing on TikTok? Maybe. I was going to say not likely, but you never know with me. There's a little shoulder shimmy every once in a while, so it could happen. And my only real comment on it is some good stuff has happened on TikTok. I mean, TikTok busted up Donald Trump in a way that I kind of loved. So I'm here for it now, quite literally.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm really hoping that in my initial experimentation on TikTok, I don't run afoul of the K-pop group. So I'm going to try not to ruffle too many feathers there. But anyway, with that, why don't we launch into a few of our stories, including a little bit of fun. If you thought we were being too negative, well, this is going to be the exact opposite of that. It's not like on Inauguration Day I needed a pick-me-up. It was already a good day, but I can't say that I didn't smile when I saw this tweet from Greta Thunberg with a picture of Donald Trump getting onto the helicopter. He seems like a very happy old man, looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. So nice to see. And if you don't know what she's doing there, let's bring that up. As he goes. If you don't know what she's doing there, it's a reference to his September 2019 tweet against her, saying she seems like a very happy young girl looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. So nice to see. Like mocking one of her greatest, I think, in that speech right there. So, look, the idea that somewhere out there, I guess over an ocean, Greta Thunberg is smiling a bit because Donald Trump is no longer in a place to deregulate our environment, block progress on dealing with climate change. Cenk, that makes me a little bit happier today.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome tweet. There's nothing I enjoy more than a good clapback. Now, this clapback was a couple of years in the making, so it took a while to get here. But like action on climate change, it couldn't have gotten here any sooner. So I don't know what I'm enjoying more, that tweet or the fact that we're in the Paris Accords again.
Yeah, no, I know. That's true. Which is certainly something, although I think Greta would be the first person to say that's the ground floor. That's literally the bare minimum. But anyway, yeah, I don't... Look, Greta's a relatively private person. There's a lot that we don't know about Greta. But one thing we do know is how she likes her revenge served. And it's cold. It's cold. Because that's not the only time. She responded to him in November of last year. And honestly, I don't even remember exactly what this is a response to, because Trump's tweet is blocked because he's blocked on Twitter now. But when he said, so ridiculous, Donald must work on his anger management problem, then go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend and chill, Donald, chill. Again, mocking the thing that he said to her when he was so mad. And this is just one of the things, one of the petty things, not to forget from the Trump era. He was so angry that a little girl got Time Person of the Year that he began mocking her on social media. That's what she is referencing there. What a ridiculous time.
he was jealous of a 16-year-old. He's just the saddest man in America. And now, quite literally, he's in Florida sulking and crying as we speak. I'm not even exaggerating. I think there's an excellent chance he is literally crying right now. MAGA tears flowing down his orange cheeks. And Greta and the rest of us are celebrating because this idiot monster is no longer in office, and the planet is literally a little safer today than it was yesterday.
A little safer. Yeah, they always say that Trump doesn't drink alcohol. Does that last through today? I wonder. Anyway, okay, let's move on to other news. Looking forward, Donald Trump is no longer president, and we're the first to say he doesn't have any power. We mean when we say that he doesn't have any direct political power. We don't have to worry about some sort of executive order making it so that same-sex couples have a harder time adopting, just at the drop of a hat. Stephen Miller's worst ideas on immigration don't immediately become policy anymore. All of these are good things, but it isn't to say that he won't have some sort of power going forward. And I, for one, want to understand what that might look like. And we're finding out in the past couple of days one idea of what it might look like. That is that President Trump has reportedly floated the possibility of starting a new political party as he prepares to leave the White House amid internal struggles within the Republican Party. The ironic thing, of course, being that the Republican Party, to the bitter end, was so deferential to him that multiple senators tried to steal the election for him immediately after being evacuated from the building because of the goons he sent in. They would have been perfectly happy to kill every one of them. But they didn't successfully overturn it, and so he considered that the ultimate betrayal, and now he's thinking about this. He apparently wants to call it the Patriot Party because he is a very, very clever person. But anyway, Cenk, we know that there's the potential media road, there's the potential political road. We thought maybe it might come in the form of his children running Republicans or him running as a Republican in 4 years. A third party, what do you think about that as an option?
I love it. I have been against a third party on the left for a long time, and I've taken a lot of heat from progressives for that. Some progressives. And why? Do I think the Democratic Party is awesome and I want to protect it? Hell no. But if you have a third party, it is going to split your vote and let fascists win. It's just a fact. Now, it's not a fact in primaries. In primaries, it's totally different. And if you want to make an argument for structural change, like ranked choice voting, I love it. How can I help more? So we have featured third parties on the Young Turks in the early and even in the late stages of elections because we're fair and we want you to know all of your options, even if I don't necessarily agree with one of those options. So now I tell you all that because if you've got a third party coming from the right, I am positive that the Republicans will be screwed. If it's anything real, if Trump manages to land it, and that's a big if because he's literally the most incompetent person I have ever seen in public life. So, if he's putting together a party, he can't put anything together. So there's going to be no cake, there's going to be no balloons, there's going to be no nothing. He's not going to have planned any of it. So I assume that the Steve Bannons of the world will lead the charge and the Stephen Millers. It'll be a party of pure fear and hatred. That means it'll siphon away a ton of Republican voters because that's the core of the Republican Party. Yeah. If they split that vote in a way that is real and effective, then the Republican Party's dead. And a fourth party then becomes interesting because then at that point, you're not automatically handing a win to fascists. So it has a lot of consequences. But John, if it's real, it's the greatest development in, honestly, one of the greatest developments in American political history.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it couldn't have a lot of really negative consequences. A more pure, unadulterated version of Trumpism might lead to more radicalization, extremism attacks, and things like that. They could have those sorts of consequences, but based on the fact that our system is set up the way it is in terms of how votes are calculated and how winners are determined, this stands a very real chance, if it's done in this fashion, of devastating Republican chances of winning national elections and maybe statewide elections too. Honestly, anywhere where they compete, the Dems will be much more likely to win. That's just a natural consequence of the system. Now, if they wanted to first change the ranked choice or approval voting or something like that, that is a serious way to pursue a third party on the right that could actually succeed. But if you don't want to do that, you want to skip right to the party, then that's the outcome. On the other hand, that was assuming that it's a serious attempt to win elections. You can also, Trump could be setting up this third party as an amazing, durable, long-standing way to make a bunch of money. He can start a party with him as the figurehead, and they can start PACs, and they can raise money, and they can do some ads, and they can technically be running, but it could be an amazing way to make money. I mean, after the election, he spent 2 months raising hundreds of millions of dollars to fight the fraud and stop the steal. He didn't stop the steal. He didn't fight the fraud. He was the fraud, but he made a ton of money. That money's still out there, by the way. How much of it did he spend?
Oh, please, don't give this man
He just got the rest of it. So you can set up a third party just to personally enrich yourself. And that seems like exactly the sort of thing a person like Donald Trump would do.
Well, John, I'm here for it on that count, too. So if you want to rob Republican voters of their money so they can't contribute to causes that might actually help their side, great. And in fact, if they give their money to a thing that's going to hurt their side, amazing, go for it. Give all your money to Donald Trump, you suckers. So give it so that he'll have it, even though he's already rich, and you won't, even though you're not. And it'll be completely and utterly wasted and will not accomplish any of your goals. In fact, it'll be counterproductive to your goals. So please donate to the Patriot Party. Make it a reality. So if you want to do something smart, even though it won't rip the Republican Party apart, and you wanted to unite with progressives in voting for ranked choice voting or real election reform that gets us to a more stable democracy, I vote yes. Okay? And I'm happy to take that. And then the Patriot Party can be real, and a progressive party could be real. And so if they want to push in that direction, fantastic. I'll help them on policy grounds because it's the right thing to do. But likely they will not do any of that. It will be a giant scam. It'll be for the personal enrichment and psychological comfort of Donald Trump. And the right way to do this is within a party. So, and by the way, the people who did that best were the Republicans, the Tea Party. They easily took over the entire Republican Party. People don't talk about the Tea Party anymore. You know why? Because it's the Republican Party now.
Yeah.
No one disagrees with any part of the Tea Party anymore in the Republican Party. We're doing it within the Democratic Party with the Justice Democrats, and soon, not soon, but within some period of time, 4, 6, 8, 10 years, however long it takes, the Democratic Party will be the Justice Democrats. That's the right way to acquire power. Since Trump is not doing it the right, smart way, I love it. All he'll do is rip the Republican Party apart.
Yeah. Before we move on to our first break, I want to ask Cenk a couple of questions about Trump moving forward and what we just went through really fast. The first being something that we brought up in our coverage earlier, but we didn't really get into. We were talking about the pardons, taking down the sort of people that he pardoned. He didn't pardon himself, and he didn't pardon his kids, didn't pardon Rudy Giuliani. Why? And those might be different answers maybe, but why do you think he didn't do that? Like something that in theory could protect him from a lot of trouble going forward that he could have done, but didn't. Why?
So number one, he knows that his main problem is in New York and that he can't pardon himself out of New York crimes. Those are state crimes, not federal crimes. So it makes it slightly pointless to pardon yourself. That's where his finances were, Deutsche Bank. That's where all of his trouble is, okay? So, but number two, and the reason why he chose not to do it anyway, even though he would have gotten some benefit out of being pardoned from the federal crimes, is because the one thing Donald Trump understands, and what I've always given him credit for, is how the spotlight works and how media works. So he knows if he pardons himself, everyone is talking about why Donald Trump pardoned himself and what crimes and what criminality is Trump excusing for himself. He knows that's terrible optics. If you're having a debate about what crimes Donald Trump has done, Trump loses that by definition. And so he didn't want that optics. And since it was going to be mostly pointless, I think that's why he didn't do it.
So, yeah, I mean, look, that's the thing that occurs to me. But for his actual base, how easy would it be for him to say, because of the 4-year witch hunt the deep state has perpetrated against me, I am forced to pardon myself for crimes I haven't committed just to keep the deep state at bay? Couldn't he say that as a defense? I feel like Red Hatters would lap that up.
Look, he could do anything, say anything. So it doesn't matter. The immovable 1/3 of the country that loves him, he could shoot their mom on Fifth Avenue right in front of their eyes and say, I dare you, and they would believe it in a second. Instantly they would believe it. It reminds me of a kid that joined a frat in the college that I went to, and he said, I would kill my mom for my frat. And it was one of the most disturbing things that I've ever heard. And that is how cults work. So they would do it for Trump. I hear you, John, that he could have come up with an excuse for it. But nonetheless, the conversation would have been about what kind of a criminal is Donald Trump. And he had enough sense to know that that's not a conversation he wants to be in.
Okay. And like I said earlier, I want to remind people, and this is the sort of thing that stops me from becoming more popular. I was wrong about that. I predicted yesterday he would. I think a lot of people did. There was a lot of reason to believe, but he didn't. So maybe credit to him. I don't know, just in terms of savviness. Super fast follow-up question, though, Cenk. We've been sort of wondering, like, nobody even remembers this because it was a billion years ago and time doesn't exist before Trump became president. But there was a period when 2IT was so frustrated with Donald Trump and his racist conspiracy theories that we used to blur his face whenever he would be on screen. Are we returning to that, or have we moved way past that as a country and as a company?
Yeah. So actually, to be slightly more accurate, in the beginning, we had him completely banned, like Ann Coulter.
That's true.
We would never speak of him. When he started running for president and was a real candidate and had a chance of winning, we blurred his face. And then once he actually started winning, we unblurred his face because we had no choice because we do news. And so before, it wasn't news because it was just a game that Donald Trump was playing for his personal enrichment. Nothing he said he meant. So it was that was our news judgment not to cover him because it was all a show. It's like we wouldn't cover a reality show as actual news, right? And so will we go back to banning him? No, because whether we like it or not, he is still news. There's no question about it. 1/3 of the country loves him and wants him to be dictator. That's news.
Okay. Are you not reasonable? Okay, with that, we are going to have to take our... It's going to be a social break, so for some of you, we will see you on the other side.
Democrats, they have been so weak for so long. For God's sake, fight for your side. I would not like to compromise with Republicans. I would like to defeat them. Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist. The 5 black kids in Central Park did not commit the rape. He said, who cares? Keep them in prison anyway. They probably did something. He's a terrible guy. Very fine people on the side of chanting, Jews will not replace us.
The most important part is we've got to fix it. And fixing it means you have to acknowledge the problem. They don't value black lives. They don't value poor lives. And anyone who's against Black Lives Matter is a racist piece of crap, including Donald Trump and nearly every Republican politician in this country. You're a full-blown racist if you still don't believe it, if you still want any reform, and you still don't want any justice.
New day in America. Progressives, we actually fight back. Public opinion, your opinion, has zero effect on public policy. The richest people in the country, their opinion has a direct effect.
Leslie Byrne, the Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by Haley, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she went on, he was not environmentalist.
Our government actively serves the richest and the most powerful and turns its back on everyone else.
Finally, end the corruption and get money out of politics and give us back our democracy.
My name is Carlos Hernandez. I am the valet parking for this small parking lot. I work for TYTs and they coming to this lot over 4 years. I know two more famous person, Bernie Sanders, the former Vice President Al Gore, and too many other guys. I'm so happy to cover it with TYT.
Patience. It's a virtue. They think you can put me in a box. But you can't stifle a revolution. Cenk Uygur, you started something, an idea. The truth and honesty matter above all else. And the people love you for it. And for a while, so did I. We could have stood united, a political force of reckoning upon our foes, the hypocrites, the phonies, the unjust. But you put me in this box.
Cenk! No!
You began without me. You began without me. But God as my witness, I will be the one to finish it.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 100, 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
I'm back at gaslighting. Did you remember gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why would you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured like earlier this year.
Figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were.
That it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Hi, this is Robin.
Welcome back, everyone. And with that, let's jump back to the news. We've just ended a 4-year period of the media having to respond to the fact that every day there's a million news stories. The 5th biggest news story of any one of these days would have dominated the Obama-era news for days at the very least. We're hopefully moving out of that time in terms of Trump's crazy statements, crazy policies, all of that. And so my concern is that we might be moving into a time much more like before Trump, where now we're going to pretend that all of that didn't happen and look for tiny little things to blow out of proportion to become brown suit scandals and latte salute scandals and those sorts of things. And so I want to talk about something that we mentioned earlier in our coverage, and that is that Biden apparently has a problem. I don't know if you know this. It's his Peloton. It doesn't exactly comport with his regular Joe from Scranton persona, they say, and then also something about cybersecurity. So that maybe potentially is an issue. But the idea that this article, which is up on the New York Times, as well as the Seattle Times and other places, says that his regular guy from Scranton persona could be undercut by the fact that this 78-year-old rides a Peloton at home and that his wife rides a Peloton. Jake, what do you think?
Okay, I'm of two minds on it. Number one, are you kidding me? I mean, that didn't take long. We're back to complaining about mustard on burgers and tan suits and saluting while holding coffee. Really, are we going to do this? And so, number one, I'm not having a conversation about false equivalency between a violent coup to murder your vice president and democracy and a Peloton bike. We're not having that conversation. So end of this. Now, having said that, there's a second reason why it's, in a sense, almost more nefarious. Because talking about Joe Biden's policies on healthcare in the middle of a pandemic is much more challenging. And that would actually be holding Biden accountable. And the press doesn't really want to do that. Because so if the first article was Joe Biden says you should get your vaccine for free because we're in the middle of a pandemic, he says your overall health care should not be free. And if you cannot afford your bills, the insurance companies should bankrupt. Well, that would be an interesting and important policy challenge on day one. But they're never going to write that. They're not going to write it. They're not going to write it because they're on his side on that. So the Peloton thing is both absurd plus equivalency, but also a release valve to make it appear as if they're challenging corporate power in this country when they're doing the opposite.
Yeah, and look, obviously, this is an article. We'll see. The reason I'm putting it on the show is because the fear that this is the opening of the floodgates. That it is a two-part thing. It's the media sort of going back into the model that you laid out so well, but then also some of the politicians going back into the same pattern. So something that we've been expecting and predicting, we've talked about on the show over the past year, is like in anticipation of the election, is happening now. During Janet Yellen's hearing, was it yesterday? You had Republican senators bringing up how we need to start taking the deficit seriously and the national debt, that these are massive things that suddenly should be a focus. Like whatever Biden plans to do or tries to do should be viewed through the lens of we have to get our fiscal house in order. After literally years of those senators not giving a damn about that whatsoever. And we were predicting it because it's a pattern that we've seen. Just like the Peloton, this is a cycle that we go through seemingly every 4 years. And my fear is that not just that they'll do it, but that it's going to be sort of like you were talking about early in our coverage today, that the Democrats present themselves as better managers and more responsible managers. And if you're responsible, then you're the one that takes care of the deficit. And so you do austerity for 4 years or 8 years, just long enough to not deliver anything for the people so that you can then hand over this new, renewed financial situation for America to the next Republican president who can immediately throw $2 to $3 trillion to the wealthiest people in America and jack up the defense budget. And so I fear that we're moving into sort of a media political complex that's designed to hem in and limit the Democrats. The Democrats are going to step eagerly into that new pen, and that is going to raise the odds that we get a Republican. Like we, for decades now, have been going back and forth between Democratic and Republican administrations. They don't have to win the popular vote to do that, but they do get the presidency in the end. And so I'm already worried about Biden, thanks to the media and the other politicians, potentially creating that same situation 4 or 8 years, that we're just going to hand things back over. He's not going to deliver.
So, John, you're opening up a giant conversation there, because one of the biggest mysteries in the next 4 years is how the media is going to handle things. If they go back to politics as usual, which is the more likely route, much more likely, right? But we're going to have an absolute rebellion online. And then how does that rebellion online interact with the mainstream media? Because when they say deficits, after being absolutely silent for 4 straight years on deficits, as the Republicans murdered our budget and put a $2 trillion hole in it for tax cuts for the wealthy. No, I'm not having a conversation about deficits. None for the next 4 years. None. If you dare bring it up, you're an absolute liar. You don't care about the deficit. I don't care if you're Jake Tapper or you're Mitch McConnell or you're Joe Manchin. You didn't say anything the last 4 years, as you all got tax break after tax break after tax break. I'm not going to abide by your goddamn lies about how you're concerned about the deficit, but only when it help the average person, because a Democrat is in office, but never when a Republican is in office to help all of you multimillionaires. Hell no. So we will go to war over that, mainly with the mainstream media. But Biden and Manchin are part of the game. They want to throw the game. It's a rigged game in favor of the wealthy. Let's call it what it is. So, and lastly, John, the one good part of the Peloton story is there ain't no regular Joe, and nobody believes it, The only people who believe it are the people inside Washington. He was a regular guy back in Scranton approximately 2 million years ago. He was half a regular guy in Delaware 1 million years ago. He took the train back and forth. He was the poorest senator. I got it. But he's been in Washington for 47 years. I don't know a politician more establishment than Joe Biden. He's one of the most esteemed senators of not just my lifetime, in American history. He's vice president and president. Don't tell me he's a regular Joe. Only people in Washington believe that. No one in the rest of the country believes he's a regular Joe. He's part of the establishment, and regular Joe is just marketing mythology. So I'm past it. It's absurd. I never believed it in the first place. Let's get real.
Let's get real. Okay, we're going to move on to other news. Reminder, if you're watching this on a platform that has it, please like the stream so that people know we're live. And with that, let's move into another potential area for Biden action in the near future. One of the darkest moments of the Trump period was the Khashoggi incident, the Saudi assassination plot against a journalist that America did everything it could to distract from, to cover up for, to apologize for. And that stain has just been there. Most people have forgotten about it or moved on, but it's still there. And there are people who want justice for Jamal Khashoggi, some answers for his family. And potentially now with Biden coming in, we might move at least a little bit in that direction. During a Senate confirmation hearing on Tuesday, Senator Ron Wyden told Avril Haines, this is the nominee to be the next DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, that she had an opportunity to, quote, immediately turn the page on the excessive secrecy and lawlessness of the outgoing administration, and asked if she would submit the report if she is confirmed. And she said, yes, Senator, absolutely, I will follow the law. The decision means that the U.S. is likely to officially assign blame for Khashoggi's brutal murder to the Saudi kingdom's de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And so it hasn't happened. Theoretically, they could change their mind once Avril Haines, in theory, gets the post of DNI. But having the actual report come out, the actual intelligence that was gathered, like actually laying out what we know about what was done in that assassination, I think that that could potentially be a sort of wake-up call, a slap in the face of our relationship with the Saudi government right now. And I'm sure for the Khashoggi family would provide at least a little bit of solace after not just the brutal murder, that was a horror, but the American complicity with that murder could potentially start to change.
Well, it's super important for precedent, too. It means the rule of law is back, and you're not allowed to murder U.S. residents and U.S. journalists. That's not a thing that's acceptable. That's a message you have to send not just to Khashoggi, not just in the case of Khashoggi to Mohammed bin Salman, but it's a message you have to send to Vladimir Putin and others, and Kim Jong-un, who've all sanctioned state murder of their opponents in other countries, let alone their own countries. So that's why it's important. But John, this is one where I don't know how it's going to end up, and I'm really curious about it. Because, okay, sure, they'll yell at bin Salman, but are they going to do something? Are they going to try to remove him from power? Because if they don't, we didn't really solve anything. And so, okay, bad boy, slap on the wrist. But remember, the Saudis are now really, really good allies with Israel. So that means actual action against the Saudi royalty is unlikely. If it happens, I'll give them all the credit in the world because they would deserve it, and it would be bold action. And since he's starting with it, maybe. So I got an open mind on it, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, in terms of action, I think that could come in a lot of different forms. Actually, removing from power, that potentially could be going down a devastating route of a war with Saudi Arabia or something like that, which I would prefer to avoid.
No, John, let me just clarify real quick. No, under no circumstances. I'm not talking about military. I'm talking about putting economic and political and diplomatic pressure. Exactly. There's a million princes in Saudi Arabia. Pick another one.
That's pretty fun. Just distancing the U.S. militarily and economically from Saudi Arabia could be a significant punishment. I imagine the Saudis would see it as a significant punishment. And also, in doing that, could do a lot of good in other areas. Us cutting off our support in the variety of forms that it comes right now for the Saudi war on the people of Yemen would be an objective good in its own right, and also could be presented as a consequence for the assassination. We could potentially stop participating in killing so many people, causing such devastation. Biden has said, for instance, I'm going to jump ahead of the last graphic, but during the campaign, he criticized Mohammed bin Salman, said that Saudi Arabia should be treated as a pariah, and said that they would seek to curb weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, as well as financial sanctions against Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And so we've sold under Trump a lot of weapons to the Saudi government. That's one way that in theory we could provide a little bit of consequences for what was done, and also help to stop so much ongoing death, and potentially in the future as well in that region.
Yeah, well, my last thought on it, John, is I'll believe it when you stop the war in Yemen. Okay? So that's a layup. That's a thing that could be done. You know, the whole first day thing is overused. But in the first week, first month, it doesn't matter, right? Well, it does matter because the earlier you stop it, the less people die. But Joe Biden ending the funding to Saudi Arabia that in any way helps them prosecute the war in Yemen is a super easy thing to do, and would be greatly welcomed by almost all Democratic voters, and by the way, by a lot of right-wing voters. So you'll actually bring unity, the thing that you cherish most, but it'll cost your defense contractors a little bit. So let's find out who Joe Biden is.
Yeah. I also want to mention, just because we don't have like a dedicated spot for this, yesterday on the show we were talking about some of the day one and week one actions that Biden would be undertaking. One more that we got a reference to is, again, this is on the level of absolutely the easiest thing in the world to do, but he's apparently going to issue an executive order to dissolve the 1776 Commission. A panel stood up by President Donald Trump as a rebuttal to schools applying a more accurate history curriculum around slavery in the U.S. That was one of the, for about 2 weeks, causes of the right, was fighting back against what the New York Times was doing in that area. So that's going to be dissolved. I don't even know if it even really existed or what it was actually doing day to day, but it's another one of those things where day one he can do that unilaterally. Doesn't have to worry about Congress or anything. So that's certainly good.
Well, John, he will definitely do that because, and I wanted to come back to make one more point, as you were alluding to 1776, Stephen Miller's book report on how racism is awesome. Guys, here's your guide to telling whether Biden is going to do something, do it begrudgingly or not do it at all. How much money is involved? The 1776 doesn't involve any money at all. And so it's a good way of getting credit with African-American voters and any voter that cares and is a decent person by getting rid of that report. That's why it's layup on top of layup. Yeah. You'd be an idiot not to do that. And they're not stupid. They will do that, right?
Exactly.
But the minute you touch money, and with Yemen, for example, you touch a little bit of defense contractor money, well, then it gets harder. And the minute you touch giant money, like the healthcare insurance industry and the drug companies, then it gets near impossible. So that's your way of deciding whether Biden's going to do something or not.
Yeah. And by the way, look, a lot of this, I know because I'm seeing comments in like YouTube, like I saw one person said they were disappointed because today's a happy day and we seem so negative, and like, I get it. I totally get it. There's a lot of good stuff that is going to happen instantly and going forward. We did that whole segment yesterday on the show about rejoining the Paris Climate Accords, ending the Muslim ban, reversing all this. It's great. It's great. And one of the things I was saying in the months leading up to the election, once it was going to be Biden, was this is not going to solve all of our problems, but it does mean that there are going to be occasional bits of good political news. That is not something we've experienced for literally years at this point. So all of that exists. We will give him credit, and today is a happy day, but we still have an obligation, and our obligation to our audience and to the country isn't that different than what it was yesterday, I would argue. So bear with us, please. Anyway, in that event, or in any event, I should say, we're going to take a short break, but stick around because we got a little bit more news after this.
Democrats, they've been so weak for so long. For God's sake, fight for your side. I would not like to compromise with Republicans. I would like to defeat them. Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist. The 5 black kids in Central Park did not commit the rape. He said, who cares? Keep them in prison anyway. They probably did something. He's a terrible guy. Very fine people on the side chanting, Jews will not replace us.
The most important part is we've got to fix it. And fixing it means you have to acknowledge the problem. They don't value black lives. They don't value poor lives. And anyone who's against Black Lives Matter is a racist piece of crap, including Donald Trump and nearly every Republican politician in this country. You're a full-blown racist if you still don't believe it, and you still don't want any reform, and you still don't want any justice.
New day in America. Progressives, we actually fight back. Public opinion, your opinion, has zero effect on public policy. The richest people in the country, their opinion has a direct effect.
Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she went on, he was not an environmentalist.
Our government actively serves the richest and the most powerful and turns its back on everyone else.
Finally, end the corruption and get money out of politics and give us back our democracy.
My name is Carlos Hernandez. I am the valet parking for this small parking lot. I work for TYTs and they coming to this lot over 4 years. I know two more famous person, Bernie Sanders, the former Vice President Al Gore, and too many other guys. I'm so happy to collaborate with TYT.
Patience. It's a virtue. They think you can put me in a box. But you can't stifle a revolution. Cenk Uygur, you started something, an idea. The truth and honesty matter above all else. And the people love you for it. And for a while, so did I. We could have stood united. A political force of reckoning upon our foes, the hypocrites, the phonies, the unjust. But you put me in this box.
Cenk! No!
You began without me. You began without me. But God as my witness, I will be the one to finish it.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 100, 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured that out earlier this year.
You think that somebody was doing it to you or that you were
That it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Right back.